The much-hyped Toyota 86 was one of our highlight cars for 2012. It was a car that brought the whole concept of purist sports car driving into sharp focus, and of course it added some much-needed aspirational appeal to the Toyota brand. About 6 or 7 months later, we at Midval to see just how good this Toyota is and to put it against one of the ultimate purist sports cars, the Lotus Elise.
The 86 on test here is the so-called high version with 17-inch wheels, fatter rubber and xenon headlights. Its protagonist is a 2007 Lotus Elise 111R with touring pack and the slightly larger alloys usually fitted to the supercharged model.
The shape of the Toyota 86 is more generic than truly characterful. It does have the classic sports car proportions, the long nose, the short high deck and that low purposeful stance. And there is an element of Toyota's classic sports car, the GT2000, in this shape as well. By comparison, the Lotus Elise looks tiny, almost delicate. It does have truly classic proportions though, and it is a very, very attractive car with a timeless design. Also, obviously, placing a lot of emphasis on aerodynamics.
The 86 is bigger in every dimension, but it's also much roomier inside. By comparison, the Elise is 45 centimeters shorter, 6 centimeters narrower and 17 centimeters lower. It's also a lot lighter thanks to an aluminium chassis and a GRP body. The Elise's engine is amidships, while you'll find the Toyota's power plant under that long sweeping bonnet.
The 86's engine is built by Subaru, which explains why it's a flat 4 design, producing 147 kilowatt and 210 newton meters. And of course, this is the same engine as is also used by Subaru's own sports car, the BRZ. Ironically, the Lotus Elise engine is sourced from Toyota. It's a 4-cylinder 2ZZGE engine producing 141 kilowatts of maximum power and 181 newton meters, and it revs all the way to 8,500 RPM.
The underpinnings of the two cars are also quite different. The Lotus features upper and lower wishbones with coilover shocks front and rear, while the steering is gloriously unassisted and razor sharp. The Toyota combines front McPherson struts with dual wishbones at the rear, and while electric power assistance makes for effortless steering action, it's not as direct.
The 86 interior is luxuriously appointed, and it really has all the important bells and whistles. I particularly like the sports seats, which are not only form-hugging but also comfortable on longer journeys. There's even a rear seat, although there is very little space at the back, and it's probably better suited to extra luggage than actual passengers. And of course, access with these wide opening doors, pretty good too. The Elise cabin is tiny to the point of being cramped. 2 people sitting next to each other definitely will be rubbing shoulders. It's also quite Spartanly appointed, although it does have niceties such as aircon and central locking and even electric windows. But you can see a lot of the aluminium, which of course is a core part of this car. The seats not adjustable at all for the passenger and only fore and aft adjustment for the driver.
So, 2 very different takes on the purist sports car formula, but as we're about to find out, both cars are focused on driver appeal.
The 86 is a much more civilized car to drive than the Lotus, but it is still intuitive, still a lot of fun. Of course, it is softer because it hasn't got the same no-compromise chassis. But if you start driving this car with a bit of verve, it is very rewarding indeed. The engine, quite gruff sounding, likes to be revved. The steering, probably a little bit on the light side, but still nice and precise when you need it. And then there's the gearbox, which is absolutely brilliant. The Lotus is all about undiluted dialogue between the car and the driver. This is a vehicle that you actually think through corners. That's how direct the steering is. You know exactly what the car is doing every millimeter of the way. Of course, brilliant performance as well, very responsive. The ride quality better than you'd think for a sports car, and it's just the kind of car that you want to drive hard and drive all the time.
Indeed, both cars are fun to drive, but which is the quicker machine?
The 86 might have more power than the Lotus, but in terms of power to weight ratio, this is unfortunately the weaker car. 118 kilowatts per ton means it carries a 300 kilogram premium over the Lotus. And you see it in the performance figures. 0 to 100 time here, 7.6 seconds, top speed 226 kilometers an hour. Rapid, but not super fast.
One could, of course, argue that road manners rather than outright speed are at the core of the Toyota's appeal, but it lacks the agility and the response of the Lotus.
While the true appeal of the Lotus is really all about the handling, it is a pretty rapid sports car as well. That power-to-weight ratio allows a 0 to 100 time of 5.2 seconds, top speed 241 kilometers an hour. But to be honest, I don't know whether you'd really want to drive this car that fast. It's much more fun to find a mountain pass and to give it stick through the twisties. The Lotus Elise is a benchmark sports car, but a sports car for purists. It's a no-compromise machine that focuses purely on the driving experience. It has a very low mass, a high power-to-weight ratio, and it is all about the driving experience. Of course, a very pretty car as well, increasingly rare, much too expensive for the kind of car you get, especially considering that the build quality isn't always the greatest. The Toyota actually quite amazing because this is a mass-produced car, and yet a car that is extremely rewarding to drive, both comfortable to drive as well, and of course also quite responsive when you start going properly. It has all the bells and whistles. It is very much an easy-to-use day-to-day car. In other words, a sports car for the masses.
A Toyota-sourced 1.8-litre engine provides ample urge, but it's the car's low weight that allows the Elise to deliver real sports car performance. It also translates into superior handling, a surprisingly supple ride and extreme driving pleasure. But it's tiny, with awkward access to a cramped cabin, and pricey too. Developed by Subaru, the flat-4 engine of the 86 is lusty, but the extra 325 kilos means it lacks the response and sparkle of the Lotus. Still, an excellent chassis makes for involving and entertaining handling, while the price reflects strong value. But you need to drive it with intent to enjoy its full potential.